Welcome to the Everything EV podcast from EV Powered. I'm Matt Allen.
And I'm Richard Alvin, standing in for George this week, who's on holiday. And as many will appreciate, there'll be slightly less Skoda chat this week. But I've already had a message from George at the weekend. He's going to a Skoda museum, so he'll still be getting his fill of Skodas. So anyway, Matt, I would say, what have you been driving? But before we do that, today we're going to be discussing a new blow for EV drivers in London, the potential return of not one, but two car brands into the UK, and Peugeot's Polygon concept, which hints at what a future 208 might look like. Matt, long-suffering listeners will have listened to my angst of trying to order a Lotus over about, feels like a year-long period. I didn't end up ordering a Lotus.
Was it as little as that?
Yeah, felt like longer. But I did actually take delivery a few weeks ago of the Genesis GV70 electrified. And I have to say, first impressions, I'm really impressed. It was a natural successor to my fairly early 4.5-year-old Audi e-tron. More of a successor to my Audi than actually an Audi was, because I have to say I test drove the Audi, test drove the Porsche and some other brands that you would normally go to, that sort of, top level German marque. And they just, some were a bit plasticky. The Porsche, God, you end up with an option list longer than a Sainsbury's shopping list, and a bill virtually similar. So, but I have to say, first impressions, and the Genesis is a very worthy and accomplished successor, and I'm really pleased to be in it. So yeah, one slightly annoying thing is when you sit, because of ADAS, when you sit at sort of 70 miles an hour with M25, which I have been doing of late, there is a sort of motor drone that is starting to grate on me a little bit. But I can probably just change the settings to make the car sound different, because you can do lots of things which I haven't worked out how to do yet. But anyway.
Yeah, I had the GV70 for 6 months as a long term, the pre-facelift one. And I really liked it. I just thought it was a really easy car to live with. It's one of those ones that just does everything. It's just really easy and comfortable and just waft along. And it's quick.
And very well screwed together.
Yeah. Which is not necessarily something you could say about the Q6 that you mentioned.
The Audi was way more plasticky than I expected. And considering, the Q6 was replacing a 4.5-year-old e-tron original, the 4.5-year-old one is far more screwed together, better constructed, better built. The only reason to get rid of it, frankly, is the fact that it's very early tech and was 160-mile range and slow charging infrastructure. Other than that, I'd have happily kept it for another couple of years, frankly, what's currently on the market. But anyway, so talking about other changes, and this isn't solely Rachel Reeves, because we'll probably be bashing Rachel Reeves a little bit over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, a couple of weeks' time, yeah.
Yeah, the congestion charge in London is changing. So, the exemption for electric vehicles is going. Us Londoners are going to have to start paying a reduced rate from next year.
Yeah, this is, again, I think possibly inevitable, as we're discussing various inevitable things. The exemption charge, the congestion charge rather, is going up for everybody next year to, I think it's £18 a day, isn't it? EV drivers who until now have managed to have an exemption, which means you don't pay anything, that's going to disappear as of the start of next year. I think technically it disappears as of Christmas Day, but everything is a bank holiday or free between now and the start of next year. Then yes, I think electric vans will get a 50% discount and electric cars will get a 25% discount, which means that you'll be paying £13.50 a day to take your EV into London, which is quite a big daily increase suddenly. It makes no odds to me up here in my rural Lidl, where I can drive where I like and not have to pay for it. But for, as you say, for people who like yourself who are in and out of London all the time, that's quite a big change.
It is a big change. And I think the biggest change will be to tradespeople working in London with vans. There's a real big push, and we've covered it, to have those trades, the plumbers and electricians, etc., that use the sort of Renault size vans, etc., as their daily vehicle. And there's been various incentives to get them to move over from diesel, because most of them will be diesel, high polluting vehicles, to electric. And just as they're starting to do that, and one of the sort of, sprats to catch the mackerel is actually, the fact that they were exempt from congestion charge. And so someone that is actually doing that, that going into London every single day, that is a big, that's a big increase. All right, yes, they will have been paying it for the, highly commuted, highly, etc. But if you're then asking them to pay whatever it is, 30, 35, 40,000 pounds to replace it for an electric vehicle. So they've got the capex cost. With various things that Rachel Reeves is doing, that's not going to be, unfortunately, as tax beneficial as it would have been. And to then be hitting people on top of that with the congestion charge that they will have, factored into their purchase of this vehicle, whether it be a car or van, the fact that they don't have to pay congestion charge. Quite a lot are also potentially having to charge the vehicles, whether it be a car or van, at a destination charger, albeit whether it's by the roadside or whatever else, because they're not going to have the ability to do off-street charging, utilising the lower tariffs and definitely the zero or the lower VAT rate. So, yeah, it is a case of almost, thanks for the moving over, and you factor all these costs in, but now we're going to just kick your shins away.
Yeah. I think I saw somebody sort of claiming that it's going to push people back into diesel vans, and I don't think it's in cars. I don't think it's going to do that. But as you say, especially for trades who are doing it every day, it's maybe going to delay their shift to EVs, because suddenly that incentive, as you say, that incentive is greatly reduced, and you've got the additional cost of buying what is admittedly always more expensive. Like for like replacement, an electric van is going to be more expensive. So you just hang on to your diesel van for an extra couple of years, and actually the cost saving of not having forked out is more than the reduced congestion charge saving that you're now making. So yeah, it's not going to send people back. I think that's probably a ridiculous idea, but it's definitely going to slow things down, I think.
Absolutely. And all right, it is a congestion charge, not a polluting charge. Yeah. But at the same time, if we are trying to improve the air quality in London, which vicariously is what the congestion charge is supposed to do, then, those older vehicles with more club DPFs, et cetera, that are diesel, are going to be, polluting slightly, well, definitely more than an electric vehicle. And let's not get caught up in the whole argument about, where the batteries come from, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is a straight line tailgate.
Air quality,
emissions, air quality. The older vehicles are going to be more polluting. What Sadiq Khan and what the incentive was to actually improve the air quality in London, that is going to be taking a backward step.
Yeah.
What isn't taking a backward step, however, is Mitsubishi, because they are taking a forward step and coming back with the Eclipse Cross EV. Yeah,
that is a bit of a guess, but I think I'm going to call it an educated guess that that's what's coming. Yeah, Mitsubishi, who pulled out of the UK in 2021, basically because they weren't selling any cars or making any money, and they were in all sorts of trouble back in Japan. It's International Motors Limited, who are the importer of Great Wall vehicles, of XPeng, of Subaru, of Isuzu. They are the ones who are bringing Mitsubishi back to the UK, and yet everything points to at least one of the cars that's coming back is the Eclipse Cross EV. It's coming from the summer next year, so it's not immediate, but they've announced it now, and they put out one teaser image just to give an idea, and it's quite clearly an Eclipse Cross under a sheet. There's no doubt about it. This is probably, Mitsubishi's still been knocking about in Europe for the last few years after they left the UK, but it's all been badge-engineered Renaults, and the Eclipse Cross is another badge-engineered Renault. This is the Scenic underneath, which I think actually from Mitsubishi's point of view is a good idea, because they need some decent EVs to compete in the UK, and the Scenic is a great car. So it's a quick, easy, relatively cheap way to have a really good EV that you can just bring to market straight away.
Yeah, and more options is only for the benefit of the end consumer, essentially.
Yeah, it's going to be another C-segment electric SUV, of which there are plenty already. But it's another one to the market. It's more competition, potentially. That gives customers another option, another price point. It'd be interesting to see how they build up the dealer network again, because obviously when Mitsubishi pulled out, they did it quite abruptly and they left quite a lot of dealers in the lurch. So it'll be interesting to see how it kind of feeds back in. I imagine you're going to see joint dealerships. You'll see places that already have an Isuzu franchise or a Subaru franchise, maybe taking on Mitsubishi as well as another sort of arm to the same business. But it'll be interesting to see how it does, because it's been a few years, and Mitsubishi have said that there've been customer demand and customer interest in Mitsubishi, and all the time it's been missing. So it'll be interesting to see how that actually manifests in terms of sales.
I know the independent Lotus dealer that I was getting my Lotus from, Bell and Colville in Surrey, they are also a Subaru. They were a Saab. they were also then a Subaru and a Mitsubishi dealer in their time, and they were still selling Subarus the last time I went down there to inquire about the Lotus. That obviously
Not get a
didn't come.
Lotus, yeah.
So maybe that's the sort of independent Chinese-y type independent dealerships that will pick up that sort of multi-franchise type options.
Yeah, yeah.
Now seems an opportune time to play out the interview that we've done with David McIntyre, talking about everything to do with scooters. And then we'll come back and talk about a very exciting potential re-emergence from a certain motor manufacturer were based in Blackpool. And we'll talk about Peugeot as well.
David, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you, George, and great to be here.
Excellent. So to begin with, could you please introduce us to Zap, explain how the brand is looking to help shape the future of electric mobility, please?
Sure, will do. So Zap is a British-born electric vehicle brand, and we say we're on a mission to re-engineer urban mobility. So we create modern, design-led electric two-wheelers built for riders who want performance, convenience, and zero emissions, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So our first product, the Zap i300, is a multi-award-winning electric urban motorcycle that combines dynamic performance with everyday usability. But everything we do is about electrifying personal urban mobility, freedom without compromise. So now being designed and assembled in the UK, vehicles are sustainable, easy to own, and easy to charge from any wall socket.
Okay, and just as another question related to that, where did your interest in electrification start, if I may ask?
I mean, personally?
Yeah, and electric vehicles in general.
Yes, I've been in the automotive industry 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
The first 10 years of my career were with Porsche cars, obviously initially in Germany, UK, and Latin America. And then with Aston Martin based in the UK in a global role. And then I moved to Asia, and I've been there for the last 20 years working with brands like Bentley, McLaren, Lotus, and Jaguar Land Rover. And my last position when I was with Lotus, I was introduced to the then founder of Zap, who introduced his i300 motorcycle concept to me, and I saw in it a lot of things that I recognized from British four-wheelers. So lightweight, low center of gravity, lightweight materials, and it appealed to me to get involved. And obviously, I saw electric vehicles being a key part of the transport landscape going forward. I'm not an EV evangelist. I don't think it's the only solution that we will have, but it's part of the solution. And I wanted to, learn about it and really then see whether I could grow something.
Mm. You described the i300 as a rule breaker on the Zap website. Why is that? Why is that?
Well, it's not really a traditional scooter, and it's not really a traditional motorcycle. It's been designed from the ground up to be aimed at the urban commuter, the urban dweller, who typically goes short distances, wants to be able to recharge quickly. And so what we have is a design-led two-wheeler with removable batteries. Those removable batteries are 6 kilos, battery packs, 6 kilos each. They're actually under the feet for low center of gravity.
Okay.
We have a British motor, which is at the heart of the bike, and that is as low down as possible and as much to the center as possible of the bike. So our solution is to, have the design-led bike. We have an exoskeleton structure, which is patented and allows us to then get this center of gravity low. So we believe we create something that is appealing to ride, easy to charge, and also fun to ride because of the inherent dynamics of the bike.
Understood. Now, why is there actually a need for vehicles like the i300? I mean, is this something you picked up from during your time in Asia, or run us through it?
Quite clearly. I mean, in Asia, in many countries, the two-wheeler is the dominant transport mode.
Right.
So if you take Thailand, for example, 84% of homes have at least one two-wheeler. In China, 80% of all two-wheelers are now electric. And Vietnam is a market, for example, which sells 3 million two-wheelers a year. By that, I mean motorcycles and scooters. And they are now implementing government strategy to, by mid-2026, ban all internal combustion engine two-wheelers from Zone 1 in Hanoi.
Wow.
And in Ho Chi Minh City, to take 400,000 internal combustion engine two-wheelers off the road by the end of 2027. So, two-wheelers are everywhere in Asia. But what we're seeing now is, a very strong conversion to EV.
Yeah. And on that, obviously because we have quite a car-centric audience, and maybe they're not entirely sold on the two-wheeled thing all the time. So how do two-wheeled vehicles make life easier for the people who live in cities and urban areas? If you could just talk us through that, that'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, most of my career has been four wheels as well. I've obviously been in selling cars, running brands in various markets, and also in motorsport activity as well. So, my background is largely four wheels, but living in Asia really opened my opportunity to the two-wheel market. But also, if we look now in Europe, urban life demands efficient, clean, flexible transport. We talked about two-wheelers, and by that I mean motorcycles and scooters. But even for a lot of people now, an electric bicycle is a preferred mode of transport. So at ZAP, we're developing, after the i300, two additional products. So the i300 is our premium performance, dynamic, design-led bike for the city, largely focused on the European market. But then we're bringing in 2026, an electric bicycle, so an e-bike, which again will be really cool looking for those people who live in an urban environment, but they don't want to have a motorcycle license, they don't want to wear a helmet, and they can use the bike lanes. And also the homologation requirements are much different. So after the i300, we'll launch in 2026 the e-bike, and then in 2027 we'll launch what we're calling i125 currently, which will be a scooter aimed at the Asian market. So very much tailored to that huge market opportunity. There are 60 million two-wheelers sold worldwide, but almost half of those are sold in Southeast Asia and in India. So we see there that we need a product which is tailored to those markets, because although the i300 has a lot of performance and braking and the riding dynamics, in some markets they want more range, or they want to be able to charge less frequently, or they want more storage. So we need to make sure that we capture the opportunity in these emerging markets as well.
That's fascinating, actually. Genuinely, I've never thought of that before at all. Maybe with cars, but not on two wheels. Bringing things slightly closer back home, how is the market for electric urban two-wheelers looking in the UK at present?
Well, the UK is still a small market relatively. Even in Europe, it's a relatively small market for two-wheelers, but it's growing, and also for electric two-wheelers. So around 4,000 electric two-wheelers sold in 2024 in the UK.
Okay.
And we expect that to grow, obviously, going forward with tightening emission zones and the 2030 internal combustion engine ban. Cities like London and Oxford are really leading this shift, where congestion and cost are pushing people to find smarter mobility solutions. So we have a presence now in West London. We have also a bike on display at Selfridges on Oxford Street.
Okay.
And we've actually delivered a bike to Oxford today to be displayed with our new retail partner there as well.
Okay. Do you have any coming up to Manchester?
Manchester?
Yeah.
Potentially, not yet, but I think there is opportunity everywhere. You just got to go with the biggest opportunities first.
Okay, yeah. Of course. And on that, obviously, because there's a lot of discussion about what the government can do to get more people into EVs. When it comes to two wheels, do you think the government could also do more to promote the adoption of both e-mobility and two wheelers? And if so, how?
I think so. As I mentioned in Vietnam, there's a big drive towards two wheelers because electric two wheelers. So I think the government here is doing a lot already. But of course, we would welcome any additional policies that would drive people onto two wheels, but also more importantly onto electric vehicles. What we're seeing at the moment is local governments, like local councils such as Oxford, are actually taking the initiative. And I think what will happen is that cities will then watch and learn and potentially copy from these leaders in key cities in the UK.
Okay, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
And obviously, part of this is about making life easier for users for riders, or do you call them riders?
Riders.
For riders who live in towns and cities. So how do vehicles like the i300 make life easier for those people?
Well, the way that the i300 has been designed is it's designed to be quick charging. We have two removable batteries, so a lot of most of the EV two-wheelers you'll see will have one large battery pack. Often they're fixed, so you've got to plug them in, or in some cases they're removable, but they're very bulky, very heavy, and not so practical. And our solution is to have two smaller battery packs, which can be used together, or they can be used individually. So you could leave one in the bike while you're charging the other one.
Okay.
Or you can run both in parallel, or you can run both in series. So our solution is to give people choice. They can charge it at Starbucks, they can charge it at their office, they can charge it at home, and it gives people options. And we think then takes away the range anxiety.
Yeah.
Because we don't believe that it's really range anxiety, but it's more about charging anxiety. But if you can charge it like a smartphone at your desk, then it's practically very easy.
Yeah.
So this is our solution.
That sounds almost like a range extender that you've built with a two-battery system.
Yeah, I mean, we have had requests from customers to have an additional battery as well. So they'll keep one at home, charging, or they'll put one under the seat or take it with them, so they can have another battery to swap in as well. So we shouldn't prescribe to people how they use their product, but we want to give people options. Like we shouldn't prescribe to people that they have to go EV or have to go two wheels. Again, I think it's just part of the solution. I'm a car guy and a petrol head. I'm not an EV evangelist, but I think there's a space for EVs, two wheelers for the commute. Even if you then, for example, I have a track bike, internal combustion engine bike for the weekends, and very good friends of mine typically will have a sports car that they use at the weekend, an electric car during the week. So it's part of the solution, and it can be used for different use cases. Our use case that we've designed the i300 for is people who live in a city, want to get around, wants something that looks great, goes fast, stops quickly, and can charge quickly as well.
Oh, that's brilliant. Brilliant. No, peaceful coexistence is the way forward between the EV and the MSCE world, absolutely. Something our listeners would be interesting to know is the difference between your products and two-wheel scooters. So maybe you could explain that to them too, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think, typically the two-wheel scooters have been, if you look at the traditional shape of scooters, are almost like Me Too products, very, very similar to each other. They typically have, even if they've been converted to EV, they tend to have the batteries at quite a high position within the bike, which raises the center of gravity. So even if you take a conventional scooter that then has become an EV scooter, it's in some ways every product's a compromise. But if you take an existing internal combustion engine and then just put batteries in it, you have to put the batteries in what is not an optimum position,
right,
relatively high up, which really affects the handling of the bike. So what we've done is we've, from the ground up, developed the bike that's going to be, because of the exoskeleton patented solution, we can package the batteries, we can package the motor, we can package everything as low down as possible. So inherently the bike is stable and fun to ride and has good dynamic characteristics, which I also recognize from car racing and sports cars that I've ridden in the past. So, but I think more importantly, it's a design. It's a really significant design change, which stands out and draws people to the product. So, if in the market at the moment there are a lot of Chinese products or products from other regions that have essentially just been modified from internal combustion. What we've done is taken something and we've designed it from the ground up to be inherently good handling, good looking, and easy to charge.
Yes. Could we maybe compare what you're doing with the i300 to the likes of, I don't know, the Citroen Ami and other quadricycles?
Maybe, but I think with quadricycles, you still have a lot of the challenges that you would have with a car, which is you still need to park. You're going to have to plug it in somewhere to charge it. And you can't use, you can't, it's not as mobile through the city. It's effectively a car, but a small car.
Yeah.
So,
and a scary car.
Yeah, and I think it's I think that they're part of the mix, and I think the Ami is a great looking thing actually, very, very fun. And what they've done by making the panels from side to side interchange was very clever. Yeah, I think the issue with a quadricycle is it doesn't take away the parking issue, the charging issue, and those things, and congestion either. And what we have with the i300 is something that really does that. You can park it almost anywhere. You can charge it where you like a smartphone. And you don't have the same issues you have with a car or a small car, effectively. Yeah.
All right, understood. So my final question is, how do you see the future of e-mobility changing in the UK over the coming years, and how will Zapp's long-term vision tie into this?
Well, interestingly, in some parts of London now, there are more bicycles on the road than cars. So this is why we're very keen to develop the e-bike, the electric bicycle, because we can then, meet those market conditions and demands in the market. So, and then we already have the i300 for those people who've maybe got a motorcycle or they've got a few motorcycles, but they want that EV bike for during the week. And then we're coming out with a lower priced Asian focused scooter. And I think there's going to be a blend, a blend. Everybody's doing something different. They're trying to find their way in the market and trying to find different solutions for everybody. And what we cannot do is prescribe to people how they should live and what they should buy. I think that's been a mistake in some of the EV agenda. What we need to do is identify use cases and then make products to meet those customer requirements and use cases. Which is why we as Zap are saying, well, we've got our i300 premium, performance bike. We're then bringing a bicycle, an electric bicycle, to meet those customers' demands who don't want to have a license, don't want to have a helmet. And for those people who maybe don't want all the performance of the i300, we'll then bring out a third product, which is another scooter. It's more of a conventional shaped scooter with great design.
Yeah.
But with more storage and maybe different battery solutions as well.
Okay, David McIntyre, thank you very much for talking to us.
It's interesting to hear David's take on the mobility needs for people in cities, especially with the congestion charge news that we just talked about. If EV drivers are going to be hit with daily charges, but scooter riders aren't, then maybe vehicles like Zaps and other e-mobility and motor scooters and motorcycles could actually be a smarter and cleaner option, because you can weave through traffic as opposed to sitting in it.
Yeah, I think that's it. We do talk about stuff like Citroën and things being the clean, compact urban mobility solution, but actually there's still the width of a car. They still have to sit in traffic like everything else. So yeah, scooters maybe are actually a more sensible way to cut urban emissions and keep people moving.
However, as somebody that does use the company Citroën for the station trips, it is quite nice having a roof, and especially with inclement weather. So I completely understand David's point, and it's completely valid. I think it's more of a seasonal type activity, unless we're looking at those sorts of BMW-esque covered scooters and things like that. And I haven't seen any electric scooters that have that sort of cover on. I do think there is still, I completely take his point, but I do think certain people, certain drivers and riders would want some level of weather protection.
Yeah.
Than is afforded by, electric motorbikes and scooters, etc.
Yeah, definitely.
Moving on, Peugeot. The Peugeot Polygon.
Yes. Yeah, this is it's very much a concept car. This isn't one of these concept cars that we'll see 6 months down the line as a production car with some slightly smaller wheels. This is a proper kind of wild, early show car. It allegedly hints at the new 208 is a suggestion this will be what it eventually becomes. I mean, it's a very striking looking thing. I'll give them that. It has gull-wing doors for a start. Probably not going to make it to production, I would guess. But it's more about this sort of test bed, a sort of showcase of here's the kind of things we're working on that will, in some scaled down capacity, make it to production. So yeah, the gull-wing doors won't make it to production. I think actually looking at it, it's got a very simple smooth front with 3-tiered LED lights. That's the kind of thing I can see, albeit slightly toned down, but I can see that actually making it onto the front of a new car. It looks like it's running on 28-inch wheels, which probably won't make it to production. And I suspect that it's got incredibly short overhangs as well, which probably won't. You will see more metalwork around the wheelbase. But it's, in terms of getting people talking, I think it's a great thing. It's a very sort of interesting nods to the old, and looking to the future. It's got things like the lozenge shape that the 205 used to have on the C-pillar. They've brought that back, and I can see stuff like that again toned down. These are huge stick-out boxes, but I can see a toned down version of that on a production car in the near future. But the thing that sort of stands out, the thing that's got most people talking about this car is the hyper square. It's not a steering wheel. It's a hyper square, which is like, it sounds like it's actually rectangular. It's not square at all. But this is what they've put in instead of a steering wheel. And it looks weird. I think you can agree. It looks almost like a sort of, those trays you get for dropping your beer glasses in.
Yeah, I was just going to say, looking at the picture of it, it almost looks, a bit tray-esque. It almost looks like they've combined the steering wheel with a airline tray and cup holders.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, you're not going to put, it's cup holders is it's the wrong angle. But it's a rectangular. Listeners, go to evpower.co.uk where you can see pictures of the vehicle. But it looks like it's got a head-up display, so you don't need an instrument cluster. But that said, it looks like you've got instruments actually inside this rectangular tray in various.
I think they're haptic controls, I think, is the idea. So you'll be able to sort of, as you hold it, then you put your thumbs inside those 4 different circular cutouts, and that'll do all the things that traditional steering wheel buttons do. It's all a bit pie in the sky, kind of theoretical at the minute. I'm not convinced that we'll actually see a properly rectangular steering wheel. I think it seems unlikely, for all that we're getting more and more kind of squared off wheels. It seems a step too far. But the whole point of it is that it's meant to be linked to a steer-by-wire system. So there is no traditional steering mechanism. So it's kind of like Lexus's steering yoke. You're in the RZ, they've got the steering yoke. It's meant to be like that. And I think whether we see the wheel look like this hyper square or not, we will see the steer-by-wire tech. I think that's something that will definitely be carried over. And that does mean potentially you've got a steering yoke rather than a traditional wheel, because you don't need to shuffle the wheel around, because obviously the lock-to-locking things are much tighter with this steer-by-wire systems.
And the much derided Tesla Cybertruck that I drove earlier in the year had a yoke and a steer-by-wire. So yeah. Yeah,
it's interesting. I was reading somebody else has had an early test drive of that hypersquare system, and reading their feedback and having driven the Lexus system earlier this year and having driven it 3 years ago when initially it was supposed to come. It's a tricky system to get set up right. It's not easy to calibrate it so it feels natural at high speed and at low speed. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, realistically, we're probably talking 2027, 2028 before a production car based on this arrives. So there's still got a few years of tinkering to go. It'll be interesting to see how well they actually manage to get it set up. So even with the revised Lexus one, it's still a bit unnatural feeling. Possibly going to be a bit of a challenge for some people jumping from a traditionally ratioed car into something like this.
Also, what is quite nice, and I presume this equally wouldn't make it to production, is the fact that it's got white wall tyres integrated in its design with the actual wheel covers. Because the wheel covers have got the sort of Citroen-esque circles in them, circles within a circle. But whether then the tyre, the wheel cover touches the tyre, it then has a cutout on the, Goodyear must think, and these are Goodyear tyres that are on this picture. Goodyear must be thinking it's Christmas, making specific white wall tyres for one model.
Maybe this is the start of the return of white wall tyres. I'd be all for that. More cars on white walls, like the 1930s.
But other than that, it's very striking design. I think you're right about the lack of the gull wing doors. The fact that the B pillar is very far back as well, currently allows you to, with the gull wing doors, allows rear occupants to get in and out. It does appear there's some sort of rear seat, albeit probably for an anorexic gerbil, but still space that you could probably one child could lay sideways on it. But other than it's very striking, and as much as we are deriding it, people like Peugeot, and I hate to say this, sort of mainly French manufacturers, are to be applauded for coming up with innovative car design.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, as we say, this is a very early concept. But, the next couple of years, we'll see this watered down towards a production car and kind of see where it comes. But yeah, I think that the French brands are doing some quite interesting stuff at the minute. You look at how well Renault's done and how quickly they've adapted a concept into a production car. But I think the 208 does need replaced. And this is, it's a positive sign that something interesting to come fairly soon.
Also, it's also got something that's going on quite a few concepts and real cars now, and that's the sort of rear spoiler that's cut out in the centre. Quite a lot of cars are coming out with that now. Yeah,
I'm presuming that's an aerodynamic thing. Aerodynamics is not my speciality, but there's quite a lot of stuff has that gap, which I presume is partly aesthetic and partly airflow to improve efficiency.
So anyway, moving along, the return of the Trevor, or more importantly, TVR.
Maybe. I'm couching this very much in could, possibly, might. But yes, TVR might be making a comeback, and it might be doing so with an electric car. TVR's had its ups and downs over the last few years. Mostly downs, it has to be said. Charge Holdings, who are the company that own Charge Cars, have now taken ownership of the TVR name and everything, and said that the brand's coming back. It's initially going to come back with the V8 Griffith, which obviously is not an enormous amount of interest to EV powered. But in the announcement where they said that it's coming back, they also said they'll then be looking towards electrified models in the future, which opens the door to an actual all-electric TVR. Charge Cars are the people who made that 67 resto mod. So this is the Ford Mustang that looks like a 60s Ford Mustang, but has ridiculous power, a proper bespoke EV platform. So I actually think there's something in there. I mean, I know it's all very speculative and probably good for years down the line, but you think actually if they've got this platform for this 67 Mustang, it's, now what is it? I'll need to double check my numbers, but effectively it's a quad motor EV platform, 536 horsepower, 1100 pound-foot of torque, not to 60 less than 4 seconds. These are the kind of numbers. They sound like TVR numbers to me. That's the kind of thing. If you could stick a Griffith body on top of that platform, or stick something, a little sporty 2-door body on top of that, that would tick all the boxes of what a TVR traditionally has been.
We were speaking before we recorded that, you know, a car and a company that we questioned would ever come out, Longbow, have actually released, so they've actually built some models, and they are actually going to hit their production cycle that they anticipated to next year with both the Speedster and the Roadster. So, you know, they're saying featherweight and, stupidly fast, and 895 kilos, they're saying, for the Speedster. 0 to 62 in 3.5 seconds. You know, 275-mile range and 150 to be produced. So it's within the will of man to produce these cars.
Yeah. That's kind of TVR-like in itself, isn't it? It's got that traditional Sportster look, big power, low weight, good performance numbers. It's almost a kind of a successor. So yeah, if there's a market for that, and if that succeeds, then it suggests that perhaps there's a market for an electric TVR as well.
Yeah, absolutely. On that bombshell, I think that's about it for this week.
Yeah, that's all
from Super Sub, George will be back next week, so I'm sure there'll be chat about the Skoda exhibition and museum that he's been to. So listeners, you can definitely wait for that. I think, as ever, there's more on all of these stories and everything else to do with EV World on evpowered.co.uk, or subscribe to the monthly magazine. So please head over and check out the website. We're always grateful for a review or a rating and a follow wherever you get your podcasts. We have to say that. Everyone has to say that. But please do also get in touch on social media. We're EV Powered, or email editorial.ev@cbmeg.co. So from me, thank you for listening. I'll join you again one day soon. But until next week, thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.